Okay, it's Mark from Talk Beliefs and Neil from Reason Now. Neil, what have you been up to lately?
I'm doing a lot of work for my brother's website at the moment, at thescificollective.com. I do a lot of their social media work, and we're setting up a minicon, sci-fi minicon. So that's taken up my time at the moment.
Yes, so I've heard. I've been to one, which was great, and I met Max Grodenchik, is that right? The guy from Deep Space Nine. That was great. So there'll no doubt be some more interesting guests there. So Sci-Fi Collective, sounds quite exciting, actually.
Yeah, it's good fun. It's a little bit less serious than a lot of the other stuff I do, so it's nice to relax sometimes. But yeah, check out the scificollective.com, and tickets are on sale for £3 on a Kickstarter. It's going to be happening July 21st near London.
Oh, fantastic. There's a lot of believers and non-believers like sci-fi, but sometimes it's associated with non-believers and atheists, for instance. A lot of Star Trek fans are considered atheists. What would you say to that?
Vast majority of Star Trek fans are sort of like humanist types.
Because Gene Roddenberry, he was a humanist. I think we should get Wayne from Sci-Fi Collective in here one day. I think that would be really interesting to talk about Star Trek and humanism.
Definitely a topic I'd like to talk about.
Yeah, and unfortunately we don't have topics as fun as that. In fact, they're quite outrageous, a lot of the things we've discovered this week, haven't we, Neil?
Yes, sometimes I think I can't be shocked about some of the things religious people said, but one of these stories in particular. One
of these stories, which we will save to the end, yes, but we'll start off with the least shocking one. This comes from pathos.com. Creationist Ken Ham can't fill jobs at his attractions. So we have our own news show here, but Answers in Genesis, which is a creationist organization run by creationist Ken Ham, has its own news show as well. And they were saying last week, I think it was, that they have a lot of jobs in their Ark Park, which is their Noah's Ark theme park, and Creation Museum, that they can't fill. We'll play a little audio clip in a moment, but they're saying, please come in and apply for these jobs. Part-time, full-time, seasonal job openings. So we'll just play that audio clip just quickly.
We actually have a lot of jobs that we can't fill here at the Creation Museum, Answers in Genesis Creation Museum. There are full-time positions, there are part-time positions, and seasonal positions. And by seasonal, in the summertime, well, like right now, the number of people that are here, we college students who come to work for the summer, or there could be homeschoolers who want to work part-time. And we have some homeschoolers, normally they have the homeschool during the day, and 2 o'clock then they come in here and work for a few hours. There could be someone who drops their kids at school and they got 5 hours to do nothing but clean up the house, and you think, what can I do?
They have nothing
else to do. So I just want to mention that if they go to the answersingenesis.org website and go to the bottom, you'll see where it says careers, go on there, jobs, and we have all sorts of seasonal other positions going right now, and so we need people.
What he doesn't say is that those jobs are only available to people who share Ken Ham's beliefs.
So, in a way, this is a good news story. That means there's not enough batshit crazy people around to work in the Ark.
Exactly. The article goes on to say, for example, if you want to apply for the full-time job of master plumber, you must include in your application your salvation testimony, that you've been saved by Jesus, or your creation belief statement that evolution as we know it is a lie and the earth is only a few thousand years old, and confirmation of your agreement with the Answers in Genesis statement of faith, which, amongst other things, says only legitimate marriage is between opposite-sex couples and implies that transgender people don't really exist. So he's really laid it out on the table there, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's been wasting a lot of people's time because he doesn't mention this up front when he's asking for jobs. So a lot of people have been wasting their time filling out interview forms and going for interviews and realising that actually you have to have some pretty wacky beliefs to work at the Ark.
Yeah, and so I assume that some people in the area who had been promised jobs a long time ago and go online, and they're not aware of this kind of contract that you have to sign, saying that you believe exactly what he believes and you're just as bigoted as he is, and it's obviously putting them off.
Yeah, and one of the things when they built this in the area and they got the land and that was the sales pitch that they would be giving jobs to local people. That was one of the sales pitches. But in a way, it's funny that he's saying he's got all these jobs available because the Ark is in financial trouble.
Yes.
Anyway, it's not getting anywhere near the number of visitors they were hoping for. So, have they really got these jobs?
I don't know, what would you do? It's not as if you have to sweep up after the animatronic animals and dinosaurs that are in that are in there.
Yeah, because the visitor numbers are well below what they expected, even for the first year. And the second year is tracking mega low. They expected about 2 million people, and I'm guessing 2 million would have given them a healthy profit, but they're tracking at only about 1.4 million now. That's difference in entry fee.
Have you seen, for instance, the Ark? You just go in there, and this is big empty shell virtually with some stalls and a few animatronic lions and whatever, and that's it. They must, I hope for their sake, they have one hell of a gift shop, because...
But the biggest problem is with that sort of attraction is there's no reason to revisit, is there?
No, that's the point.
Whether you believe what they're selling or not, or you're going for a laugh like a lot of atheists do to just laugh at what they believe or find out what they believe.
Yeah.
There's no real reason to revisit, so they're going to run out very quickly of money and visitors.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of donations from well-meaning Christian people just going down the tube here.
Well, as you said, it does make some interesting visual fodder for atheists. I mean, I know that Seth Andrews from the Thinking Atheist, he did a video in the Creation Museum, and I think it was Bill Nye, the science guy. There's a video of him walking around the Ark Park with Ken Ham, and a bunch of Ken Ham's followers are literally following behind, and you could see poor Bill Nye feeling very uncomfortable.
It was very intimidating, actually, but he was answering their questions, but they didn't really get what he was trying to say.
Yeah, they really browbeat poor Bill Nye, but he was obviously a little bit out of his element there. But I think one thing that Ken Ham should perhaps have a look at is the GQ magazine article that says the Bible isn't an essential read, and this is something which has really pissed off Christians, hasn't it?
Yeah, massively. This is really funny. When I saw this headline, I was like, well, of course it's not. But for a publication to come out and say this is very interesting, because will it be damaging to their readership numbers?
Yeah.
I don't know.
This comes from wokesloth.com. International Men's Monthly GQ magazine has found itself in a bit of hellishly hot water after placing the Christian Holy Bible on a list of 21 books you don't have to read. Novelist Jesse Ball explains his reasoning. The Holy Bible is rated very highly by all the people who supposedly live by it, but who in actuality have not read it. And he continues, those who have read it know that there are some good bits, but overall, it is certainly not the finest thing that man has ever produced. And he goes on to say that the book is repetitive, self-contradictory, foolish, sometimes ill-intentioned. But when this bit of news got to Fox and Friends, who is the notoriously conservative television program, they got downright angry and brought in one of their pastors, their regular pastors, who's on the show as a guest quite often, and he really let rip about his anger in this. Fox religion contributor and Fox and Friends regular Father Jonathan Morris appeared on the program to stoke the fires of offense, explained how JQ stated the Bible should be digitally burned, which doesn't sound like a very hip thing, though the article in no way advocated or mentioned book burning, digital or otherwise.
When I first saw this, I thought this might be just a columnist who was trying to do it, make a sensationalist column in order to get attention. But this turns out this is the editors of GQ magazine who wrote this. This is the editors, which means the magazine is going on record saying this is what we believe. And it's just, to use their language, foolish. And just, even if you don't believe that this is an inspired word of God, in the last 50 years, 3.9 billion people have read this book. 3.9 billion Bibles have been published. That dwarfs every other book that has been read in the last 50 years. Now, and this is the last 50 years, this Bible is almost 2,000 years old. So it's just foolish, and it's a shame.
What do you think their motivation is behind that? Why would they come together and say, you know what, this is a good thing to write for our readers?
Well, what they did is they took 21 books that they think should be digitally burned. Okay, which doesn't sound like a very hip thing.
Right, so they got really, really pissed with that, Neil.
But they had to use lies for their faux rage.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. Saying that book burning, which wasn't mentioned, so that's faux rage, absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, anyone who has read the book would have to agree that it is repetitive, it's contradictory,
Yeah.
it's foolish. And I think it's very polite the way they describe it. They say, even at times ill-intentioned.
Yeah, well, I guess actually, I mean, I'm surely the people in GQ, they're not conservative religious people at all, and they didn't mind saying this, and they probably really do believe these things. But
They could have gone a lot further.
They
could have said
done.
outright
Yeah.
outrageous.
But they were being a bit provocative, and obviously now GQ is got the publicity it needs. So
yeah, only time will tell, I guess, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, whether the numbers go up or down. I'm guessing there's going to be a lot of evangelicals stop buying GQ.
It will help them rather than harm them, and these people on Fox News should have known that rather than doing an entire slot.
I mean, that's free
about
advertising, isn't it?
how enraged they are.
That's free advertising, because I know they think their program's only going out to their conservative friends, but then it all gets on Facebook and social media and it's all over the place, isn't it? So,
But these statistics, the most read book in the world is the Bible, and over the past 50 years, 3.9 billion copies sold. Now, sold is different from read, isn't it? You were saying earlier.
Yeah, so this is another bit of bull crap from this pastor. He goes on and said it's 3.5 billion people have read the Bible. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. That many Bibles may have been printed and distributed, but no way have those 3.5 billion people read the Bible. Because as anyone sitting here is atheist who has read the Bible knows, many people lose their Christianity and their faith
when they start
once they've read
reading
the Bible. So that number would be way lower than 3.5 billion. Otherwise, there would be a ton more atheists, basically.
These great big tomes, people don't read them unless they're Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. In fact, it's interesting to note that Harry Potter came in third with 400 million copies sold. So, but you can, I think you can justifiably say that there's 400 million copies were also read cover to cover.
Yeah, probably.
Unlike the Bible.
Yes, absolutely.
And certainly we know the Catholics don't read their Bible because they're actually encouraged not to. They just go listen to the priest interpreting it for them.
Absolutely. When I was young, I never read the Bible. I just listened to whatever the priest or the vicar, I changed around several churches, was saying at the front. So again, another lie. He knows that's a lie. He knows 3.5 billion people hasn't. So why does he have to come onto a national programme and lie and lie and lie? It's just not doing his cause any favours. But good on GQ because, well, let's think about this for a second.
Okay.
Should you read the Bible? They
That's a
said
good
you don't
point.
need to read the Bible.
Yeah. Well, he would say, yes, everyone should read it. It's the inspired word of God.
And now I'm sort of like changing my mind halfway through the interview here because I think it is very funny that they've said you don't need to read it. And actually I do think that's completely true that you don't need to read it, apart from the fact that 3.5 billion people in this world are Christians, and therefore they're influenced by the Bible, and maybe we should all read the Bible to know what a horrendous piece of literature it is.
I think we should encourage any Christians who might be listening to read the Bible. And before you all shout, we are reading it. No. Start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. Page by page. Every single page. Highlight the bits that make you feel a little bit queasy, that you're not comfortable with.
Yes, a lot of them are in the Old Testament, that bit that which we don't actually pay much attention to. I certainly didn't when I was growing up.
And don't get out here saying, but Jesus said he's a nice man and he's changing everything. Because remember, he didn't. He said he's come to enforce the old laws.
Yes, that's right. And if he was to change the old laws, he would be changing God's word. And God's his father. Yes. And they're the same person.
So you don't get away with just reading the New Testament. You have to go back and read the Old Testament from the very start. Look at all the bits that make you feel icky, all the rape, the murder, the genocide. And then you could even then go on to the scientific inaccuracies. Then you could find some repetitiveness, and then maybe you could find some contradictions. Mark them up too.
Yeah.
And
if you still feel it holds up, that's fine. But it just seems very strange to me that most Protestant churches that I know of today, they stick to not only the New Testament but the 4 Gospels, and that's it.
Yeah.
because those are the quote-unquote nice bits. But someone else who only read the Bible all the way through, allegedly, late on in his life was televangelist Jim Bakker, and apparently he only did that after he was in prison. More on that later. And this article we're looking at, this is the bad one that we had some. This is from deadstate.org. Jim Bakker says 2 scientists were sent by God to cure cancer, but they were aborted. So on the Jim Bakker Show this Monday, host Jim Bakker had some distressing news for anyone gullible enough to believe his religious scams. According to him, God has already sent 2 people into this world who were destined to discover a cure for cancer, but they were aborted before they had a chance.
The thing we've done in America, we have killed our babies.
Yeah.
We have killed the future of America. I told you the other day a story about how someone said they asked God, why haven't we had a cure for cancer?
Right.
And he said back, I gave you 2 scientists that had the cure, and both of them were aborted.
Right, so yeah, he said, I gave you 2 scientists that had the cure, and both of them were aborted. That's apparently what God told him.
Yeah, so he's basically trying to blame atheists and immoral people for there not being a cure for cancer.
Yeah. Now, all you have to do, Neil, is think about this for a very... Oh, poor,
but the more you think about
you're face palming. What is going through your head?
Well, the more you think about it, the more you go, but hang on. But hang on. So I guess you start at the very beginning and go, why did God create cancer in the first place? He created everything.
Okay, now I'm going to put my Christian hat on, okay? My Christian apologist, old me. Well, you see, we all sinned, and because of that, there was the fall of man. And things like cancer came into the world, so it's our fault.
Right, okay. So it's our fault we have cancer. And it's our fault that he sent babies that have been aborted that we don't have cancer. If you think about it a bit longer, maybe he just likes his creation of cancer so much that he's picking people who will abort babies to make sure we don't cure cancer. Because he sends the babies to everyone. They're all God's children until we corrupt them. Every single one of them is God's child until we corrupt them. So he's sending them to people knowing that they're going to abort them. He loves cancer. God must really love his cancer to keep sending the babies to people. I mean, obviously this is nonsense. But
well, yeah.
But if you go by the same logic, if you try to use the same logic that Jim Bakker has used. But anyway, let's talk seriously about... There is a serious thing. We may have cured cancer by now. But one of the things that definitely would have harmed the chances of curing cancer was the fact that religious countries keep their people poor and uneducated. There's half the world is undereducated. Now imagine how many Einsteins we've missed, how many Marie Curies we've missed, how many Stephen Hawkings we've missed, that are just because they weren't educated, because religious countries tend to keep their children poor and uneducated.
Yeah, you know who comes to mind? The Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's not just them, of course, but they actively discourage any of their children going to college at all.
Yeah, and America was very much moving on the way to everyone has to be highly educated, but the evangelicals have come in and they've cut that at the knees, and homeschooling, science denial,
creationism.
So I'm not saying we would have cured cancer, but in my mind it's very much more likely that evangelical Christians are more likely to have stopped cancer being cured than an abortion.
Oh gosh. And if this was true, why wouldn't God just then send 2 more people? You know, it's like, was he thwarted by the abortion clinic then?
Exactly. If God is all powerful, he would go, I sent those 2 to the wrong couple. Damn.
Yeah.
Send 2 more.
It's so obvious. He's just using this story to put forward his pro-life campaign.
But the funny thing is, we talk about this now, knowing science exists. How comes for the 200,000 years that humans have existed, he didn't make no one said, why hasn't God sent a cure for cancer? Because we didn't know about science. We didn't know about cells, molecular stuff. And so we didn't know anything. So he basically for 200,000 years, billions of people die of cancer. Now he's sending them. Now we know about science. All of a sudden he's sending them, but we're aborting them.
Yeah. These things always happen in the lifetime of the televangelist who's talking about them. Whether it's the end of the world or curing cancer or whatever.
It's just nuts. It's just absolute nuts. I mean, I guess the final thing I'd say is just like education, and especially for young girls around the world. It will solve so many of the world's problems.
And if you follow people like Jim Bakker, I think education also comes into this. Have a look into his background. It didn't take us very long to find out that one of his Wikipedia headlines is Fraud, Conviction, and Imprisonment. After a 16-month federal grand jury probe, Bakker was indicted in 1988 on 8 counts of mail fraud, 15 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy. That is just one of the things we uncovered. Yeah. And this has not been the first time this happens to these televangelists. And they just always get back on the horse and they're doing more TV like he's doing now.
They get back on TV because their congregation forgives them, and obviously because God needs more money.
Yeah,
he always needs more money.
Always needs more money.
He always needs more money. And he's also got accusations of rape against him, but don't let that bother people.
Yeah, well, you could say where there's smoke, there's fire.
Well,
the same would apply to George Pell at the moment, who's having a spot of problem.
He paid someone off Jim Bakker, so, well, why did he do that? But yeah, I mean, this isn't one of our actual stories, but breaking news literally come through about an hour ago.
Yeah.
George Pell's going to court.
Now, he's very high up in the, is it Church of England?
No, Catholic Church.
When they wear the frocks, I get confused. So he's a cardinal.
Yeah.
And this is historic sexual abuse, most of which all of which he denies.
Well, the thing is, he's been accused of protecting sexual abusers, and in fact the Vatican were hiding him for a very long period of time. And there was a great
It's almost just as bad.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a great Tim Minchin song about basically asking him to come back and stand up to people, but since then now he's being accused of abuse as well, so it's going to get very interesting. And I will go and put a tenner down the book. Here's Cardinal Pell's going to jail.
Oh, jeez. Well, he'll have some very interesting friends in jail with him.
He'll write a book. He'll write a book about it. It'll come out. He'll be forgiven.
Yeah, him and Bill Cosby can have long late-night chats about who knows what.
Yeah.
I'd like to be in a fly in the wall, or would I? I just want to forget about them, I think. Okay, I think that's about it. And no end of the world this week, but I know one's coming up in June, and we might even find there's one coming up next week. We'll have to do some digging. So I think we're going to go out and enjoy the sunshine, because I can see the sun has actually come out here in England, which doesn't happen that often. So thank you very much, Neil. We'll see you next week.